Are you a fan of games where you build bases and things like that and then have to micromanage the staff?
Absolutely. I do like those sorts of games. Anytime I can micromanage something, I'm always a fan of it, whether it be even in sports games or, like you said, building bases. That works for me too.
Well, then you're really going to enjoy this because you get to micromanage a school. Hi guys, this is Moriarty, and we're taking a look at Academia School Simulator.
And this is Brax. And what are you supposed to do in this game as far as managing the school? Do you build it first, or?
If you've ever played a game like Prison Architect, you've already played this game. And it should be no big surprise considering that one of the main creators of School Simulator is also one of the main people from Prison Architect, which means that the core gameplay revolves around building facilities for your school or prison, as it were, and then handling staffing and making sure that you can get enough people into the school, or in the previous incarnation into the prison, buying and selling prisoners and things like that.
I'm sorry, are you referring to a school as a prison right now and students as prisoners?
Not exactly. It's just that the games are so very similar that it's if you've played that game, you're going to get it.
Gotcha. So you're making the comparison based upon those two games. Okay.
Yeah, and at the same time, absolutely, it's kind of prison-like when we're talking about kids in this particular game, because they are nothing more than a resource. And I find that very interesting, because I think that's also kind of the way that the United States treats their school system as well, where kids are nothing more than a resource. This is a really simple game. You have classrooms, you hire teachers, you inject as many students as you possibly can, overcrowding the absolute crap out of the rooms so that you can get the highest amount of grants from the government and stay rich. And that's really the whole point of the game. However, there is a secondary system to the game, which is the standardized testing at the end of the year, where you have to get as high as you possibly can in order to get all the neat things. Though, at the moment, there are no neat things in it. So it's just kind of fluff at that point. There's no real rating system, as it were, for getting an F across the board on all of your testing.
So with that sort of dichotomy being in the game, do you think that this is kind of taking a shot at real-world education in the United States or even maybe other countries? Do you think the developer kind of views this as a representation of what not necessarily a real school would be like if you went to it, but maybe what the motivations are for the education system with, like you said, standardized testing being the main method of gaining funding and things like that? Or
I don't think that this is somebody taking a shot at anything. I think that this is somebody taking a very real look at what is in a school system and producing a similar simulation to the Prison Architect game. I think that drawing parallels to that game is really important because they got in a lot of trouble in the past for including things in their games that were questionable in that they happened, but they weren't particularly tasteful. So you could put prisoners to death even if perhaps they hadn't been completely found innocent, guilty. You could have riots and you could encourage graft and theft. You could do these kind of things, but it wasn't part of the game in so much as wasn't the point of the game. It was just kind of there because it's there in real life. So I see the bad parts of education and academia in this game, and I see how they're not saying it's a shot at them. It's just these things are there and you can do them or not. So you can absolutely stack 50 students to a room with a level 1 teacher and just constantly try to bring in as much cash as possible. And that's an acceptable game.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you have to make sure that your staff and your teachers are satisfied and happy? Because when I think about older theme park style games, a big part of it is making sure that your clientele is satisfied with what they're experiencing. So is this all about productivity, or do you really have to take into account if these students are unhappy, are they going to do worse on the standardized test? Are they going to do worse in their classrooms? Or does it really not even matter how happy they are as long as you're just putting together the right ratio to get the most productivity out of them?
It's not even so much about productivity. So Teachers don't seem to have any sort of rating, and they don't seem to have any sort of happiness or anything like that. I imagine that will change over time, but in its current incarnation, there's nothing there for teachers. However, students have a ranking based on their standardized testing, but they also have different things inside of every individual student. So how healthy they are, how motivated they are, how much they're enjoying learning, how much energy they have, things like that. And then you have a rating across all of them in a certain class. So you could, if you wanted to, just be a freshman school and just focus on freshmen. Though I don't know why you would do that. You could.
Right, but with them having all of those different things that you have to keep up with. So if I were to create 4 classrooms, but I didn't have a clinic in my school, that would make my students perform worse?
With that, you would see a worse grading on your standardized test if you had no clinic, if you had no cafeteria, if you didn't have these things that are necessary for the students. So one of the things that happens is students get sick while you're playing, and they are contagious. So if you have a sick student who is not seen by a nurse, he will get other students sick, and then they will not come to class. And I, at one point, had 450 students, and 260 of them were out sick.
That makes sense. So it's really a matter of paying attention to everything, I suppose, because if you want to continue to grow your school, you have to make sure that it's functioning at the level that it currently is. Can you go bankrupt?
Yes, and that is one of the things that I saw being complained about more than anything in this game, is the fact that if you go bankrupt, you will get no warning before suddenly your game is just over. In its current incarnation, if you go below 0, your game just ends. That being said, you can absolutely take advantage of the system and make a lot of money in this game. You get grants from the government for doing certain things, whether it be having a fully functional clinic or having 150 students or whatever. But you can choose to take those grants after you've already achieved those goals, which means that you can pretty rapidly build up quite a lot of money by doing this. Additionally, you can at any time transfer in additional students. You could, if you wanted to, transfer in 500 new students. Doesn't matter that they don't have desks. They're just gonna, do badly on their tests. You get the money, so who cares? You can do that.
Yeah, I like the way that the teachers have their own special skills and attributes. I think that sort of thing is really great for micromanagement games, and that's what I enjoy. Being able to recruit and have those teachers put into where I want them to gives me a sense of ownership. Does this game make you feel that way when you play it? That kind of like, this is my school, this isn't anyone else's?
Sure, yeah. Anytime you're doing this kind of stuff, you're going to get that. I found that personally what happened is I hated my school because it started to become a little bit too large. Yes, I was making $20,000 a day and I had basically infinite money, but at the same time, I was seeing that it was very inefficient, and I like efficiency. I'm one of those people who just digs having a highly efficient business running. And the way to do that, to my belief, is to completely restructure everything around small blocks, similar to a prison, where you would have a block of students with their own club and computer rooms and their own little grassy knolls where they can go run around and do stupid kid stuff. And then their own block of faculty rooms that maybe only services 3 or 4 classrooms total, and then a separate block of maybe sophomores, and then another separate block of juniors and a separate block of seniors, all with their own facilities and their own services, so that you're really increasing the amount of efficiency around that. And I think that's really where this game shines, is that you can absolutely just focus on that kind of efficiency.
Yeah, that's interesting, because there are schools that function that way, that you will have, say it's a group of 8th graders, they will split those 8th graders into 3 different teams based upon how well they're doing on their tests, their intelligence, or whatever it might be. And then, like you said, they have their own little wing, as it were, where it's kind of secluded, and that's where all of Team A is, and then Team B is over here. Then Team C is somewhere else. So it's neat that you can do that in this game, because that's becoming something that happens in the real world more so than some people might actually realize.
Yeah, so I think that's really the neat thing about this title, is that you have that kind of stuff. It's still broken. It's very broken game. It's too easy to get a lot of money. It's too easy to be able to afford all of the top-notch students. By the time I was nearing the end, I simply had 2 or 3 teachers per classroom, and they were all the highest level teachers per classroom. I had like 40 nurses and 30 janitors. I mean, it was outrageous how much money I was bringing in. It just didn't seem to correlate to what we see in the real world. There was no real difficulty.
So how does upgrading work in this game? Say I wanted better computers or better classroom objects like chairs, tables, whatever it might be. Can you dump your money back into research and development or other ways of improving and upgrading what you have in your school? Is there a way to get better over time?
No, there is nothing like that. This doesn't have that yet. I imagine that's a system that you'll see later on, where you can choose to have the dumpiest, crappiest, inner ghetto type of school with just trashy classrooms, or you can have an Ivy League style of classroom, but as it is now, that doesn't exist. What you've got is what you've got, and once it's there, it's done. So that was kind of my issue. It's very easy to make a lot of money. It's very easy to afford everything and just kind of constantly do it, especially if you grow big fast. You'll just have so much money, it doesn't matter that you're getting an F. And I got an F many, many times at the end of my year. The best score I ever got was a D, and that was because I had the cleanest school, but everybody was failing their tests, which is why I ended up just throwing money at the problem. Buy 3 teachers per classroom. Eventually, I started decrowding my classrooms because I had at one point, I think, 58 students to a teacher.
What is this, a state university? Come on, Moriarty, you can't do that.
I threw so many people into a room, I just blocked them all together. It was easier, and I made a lot of money that way. It didn't make sense for me not to do it that way.
Of course you did.
It didn't make sense. The students suffered, but I had enough money. I didn't care. Why would I care? I have enough money to do what I need. Why do I need to care about these stupid kids? It didn't make sense.
Really, what you should have done is just incorporated online learning environments. That way you don't even need a teacher anymore, right? And you can just have all these kids making you money. They can learn online, air quotes, and everything will be good.
I think that might be a topic of conversation that's a little bit beyond this particular video.
Oh, well, perhaps we should just talk about this game then. What a bummer. Okay.
That being said, yes, I absolutely agree with you. I think that there's a lot of opportunity for things to do. And if this continues in the way that Prison Architect did, you're going to see a workshop filled with mods, filled with different items, different stuff. This is clearly very early access. They're going to be bringing in a lot of different stuff later on. And it's all the kind of stuff that I think anybody who's buying this game is kind of going to expect. So you're talking about complex staff, research trees, school specialization, subject scheduling.
Well, if I did want it, how much does it cost in this early access state?
In early access is $19.99. It's a $20 title. It will almost certainly, because Introversion did the same thing when they released Prison Architect, this will almost certainly go up. And that means that you're probably looking at eventually a $30, $40 title. So I think that if you're going to buy it and this looks interesting, this is kind of one of those things where it's an investment. If you're buying it and you think you'll enjoy it in a year or two, yeah, pick it up for $20 because you're saving yourself money in the long run. It has been on sale before, so I'm sure it'll go on sale again. You can probably pick it up for $15 at some point. I think that's a neat thing to do. It's definitely a fun little title, but unfortunately in its current state, you're looking at no more than an hour or two before you're at the top.
For $20, I'm going to want in the future for them to go ahead and introduce, like I said earlier, research and development stuff, more things for me to do, more organization, whether that be with my staff or my classroom management, time management skills, just different things for me to feel like I'm making progress, because I don't want to pay $20 and then spend 2 hours and then feel like I've done everything and that I've reached the precipice of what this game offers. And because this is early access, that could certainly be a possibility.
I have to say, this will be just like Prison Architect. If you know what that means, then you know what it means. You're going to be getting a title that's going to change, it's going to get really big, and it's going to be all about finding the most efficient way to do things. There will will eventually be entire blog posts written and dedicated to the most efficient systems, having a bathroom exactly 3 blocks away from the door has to be on the 3rd block. There's going to be that level of efficiency. I'm guaranteeing it, because that is what these kind of games lead to. I think it's very interesting. It's very unique. I like the fact that they're not afraid to show you the terrible, horrible, awful parts of academia, which I personally have a vendetta against, but that's neither here nor there. So, yes, I think that $20 is a decent price for it, but I think that if you're paying $20, you're going into it knowing it is absolutely not ready for showtime.
You know, this is something I don't normally do, but I want to hear everyone else's comments about academia, so put them down there. Tell us what you think about academia. Moriarty seems to have a personal vendetta against it. We've had this discussion off camera plenty of times. I think he's a terrible person, but let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out this game on Steam, and be sure to watch another one of those videos that you see in the corners right now. This has been Brax.
And Moriarty.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.